Let's get started.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 283rd meeting of the State Bar of Georgia Board of Governors. Before we begin, just a couple of housekeeping items and reminders. Number one, Sarah is going to be transferring folks on and off the screen, so please be patient with her as she does that, especially on the front side of the agenda. Only board members are allowed to vote when the polls pop up, although we have non-board members who are attending the meeting via Zoom. Only the board members should vote. And just to ensure that only board members are voting, we will run a report at the end of the meeting to verify that only board members have voted. On some devices, if you're joining us on a device different than a computer or a tablet, some devices you have to scroll down a little to see the vote and submit button anytime we put up a poll. And we'll do voting for this meeting just as we did for the spring Board of Governors meeting. At the appropriate time, Sarah will post a poll. You can cast your vote and then submit it. If you'd like to speak during the meeting, please click raise your hand and we'll call on you in the order of those who have raised their hand. Please try not to answer or pose questions through the chat box. If you don't want to raise your hand and ask it on screen, then use the Q&A option for that. For the attendance report, please make sure your full name is listed in the participants list. If it shows your email address or something else, you can hover over your name until you see more in the blue box. Then you can click rename and enter your name. We'll leave the chat feature turned on, but again, it's not going to be monitored for questions, so please don't ask your questions that way. I think that is all the housekeeping items, and so we will get started with the agenda in full. Here to deliver today's invocation is the 62nd President of the State Bar of Georgia, Patrice Perkins Hooker.
Many people in this assembly have different religious beliefs, and some may not observe or practice any religion. But most of us probably believe that in important times like this, it takes more than just ourselves as individuals to meet the moment. So whether you follow any particular faith tradition or simply believe in the power of community, I would invite you to lift up those belief practices at this important moment and allow me to do so in the language that I use. Would you please join me in prayer? Creator of the universe, who is known by many names in many different religions, be with this assembly today. Watch over the State Bar's new leader and this body. Grant President Don Jones the wisdom and strength to preside with a sense of servant leadership. Allow the members of this body to have the discernment to govern in the best interests of lawyers and citizens of Georgia who depend upon the legal system. Help our bar leaders focus on the purposes of the State Bar of Georgia, to foster among our members the principles of duty and service to the public, to improve the administration of justice, and to advance the science of law. In these trying times, many in our country are looking for and needing justice. Help remind the leaders of the State Bar of Georgia that our justice system is the greatest balancer of the racial and systemic inequities between those with and those without money, property, privilege, or status. Keep your hand over our president. Protect, guide, and sustain her through her year. Allow her to emerge on the other side in good health, knowing that she has sustained a sound bar, served well our profession, the citizens that we protect, and the system of justice. Amen.
Thank you, Patrice. We have several special guests joining us this morning, and here to recognize those is the 60th President of the State Bar of Georgia, Robin Fraser Clark. Robin?
Thank you, Daryl, and good morning, friends. It's a wonderful day, wonderful morning to be with you. I want to congratulate President Don Jones on her day today, and congratulate President Daryl Sutton for a wonderful year. But it's a wonderful morning to be with you on June 13, 2020, which happens to be our 28th wedding anniversary. And Bill and I have spent many anniversaries with the State Bar over the years, and we're happy to be spending number 28 with our dear friends. We recognize this morning special guests and special friends of the State Bar of Georgia who are with us on this meeting. From the Supreme Court, we recognize Chief Justice Harold Melton, Justice Keith Blackwell, Justice Nels Peterson, Justice Sarah Warren, Justice Charlie Bethel, and Justice Carla Wong McMillan. From the Court of Appeals, we recognize Chief Judge Chris McFadden, Presiding Judge Ann Barnes, Presiding Judge Yvette Miller, Presiding Judge Sarah Doyle, Judge Clyde Reese, Judge Christian Coomer, Judge Ken Hodges, and Judge Berta M. Colvin. And from past presidents, we have with us this morning Hal Daniel, Bob Kaufman, Linda Klein, Pat O'Connor, Patrice Perkins Hooker, Ken Shigley, and Lester Tate. And we also want to recognize that we have the Attorney General with us this morning, Attorney General Chris Carr. Thank you, and good to see everyone and good to be with you.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you for being here. So historically, the outgoing president does not have an opportunity to address the Board of Governors during this meeting, but these are unprecedented times. Unprecedented because they are times marked by insecurity, which is born sadness, uncertainty, which is born fear, frustration, which is born anger, and death, which is born grief. Unprecedented because we have endured nearly a half year of being constantly faced with the overwhelming reality and horror of death. First at the hands of the pandemic, then at times at the hands of gunmen, and at other times at the hands of brutality disguising itself as justice. We have endured these times hiding rage, anger, fear, and grief, all in favor of keeping things moving, because for most of us, that's all we know how to do. These are times that have left us confused and scared, in part because we simply don't know when all of this will end. While all this is no doubt at least in part true for all of us, the burden of it has fallen disproportionately upon our Black friends and colleagues. This is not okay. Meanwhile, many of us have, for the most part, stayed silent and saving our shame or frustration for later, silent for fear of speaking up and looking sensitive, or worse, insensitive, angry, tone deaf, or clueless. This too is not okay. So what now? What do we do now that issues always present, but seemingly bubbling below the surface, stare us squarely in the face? What we do is rise. These issues have risen, so we rise to meet them. But we don't rise alone. See, in my eyes, we're a family of 52,000. And like any family, our family has members who need an embrace, to know they are loved, cared about, and important. There are members of our family who need to be heard. There are members of our family who simply need our unwavering and unconditional support. Also, like any other family, whether we like one another or not, we must all live together. And to live together, we must communicate. So let's talk to each other. Let's share a dialogue. As we venture into that dialogue, though, let's acknowledge a few things. Let's acknowledge where we've been, where we are, and where we go from here. Let's acknowledge racism, inequality, injustice, that they are real and that they are ubiquitous. Let's acknowledge what we don't understand about ourselves and each other, while at the same time admitting what we truly want and what we want to know. Let's acknowledge there are things we can each do every day to narrow the gap existing between any two of us. Let's also acknowledge that we cannot expect any member of this family to truly hear what we say until we have proven ourselves trustworthy, consistent, and accountable. And let's acknowledge that we must first hold ourselves accountable before we can be accountable to others. That we must grow and learn about ourselves in order for others to have confidence in us. And let us please be willing to apologize when we fall short, and be willing to rework our approach so that we can meet our family members' expectations. The issues we face, the times we find ourselves in, are bigger than any one of us. It may be hard to see and even harder to admit, but these times have presented us a gift, the gift of a bigger opportunity, an opportunity to meet this moment in history by listening, expressing, and engaging, an opportunity to think about others and how we relate to them, an opportunity to unravel what we cannot even see or know because it is not our unique experience, and we have not taken the time or made the effort to know one another's experience. To get beyond these times, to truly be a unified family, we must listen. Listen without judgment or preconceived notions. Listen to everyone, but especially to those with perspectives and experiences different than our own. The words we speak can fall short of conveying everything that is in our hearts and minds. I learned this difficult lesson myself 2 weeks ago. So let's stop just speaking. Let's ask. Let's invite a perspective different than our own. Let's hear each other, even when, if not especially when, what we hear is critical, feels uncomfortable, or hurts. That is how we can be better. That is how we can do better. And that is how we can deliver hope in the face of hopelessness, change in the face of adversity, life in the face of death. Thank you for this opportunity to break my silence. Now it is time for me to listen. And as I pass the gavel to another member of our family, that is what I will do. Thank you very much. Here with us this morning to deliver a special report from the Supreme Court of Georgia is the Honorable Chief Justice Harold Melton, a stranger to none of us. Chief Justice, thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you, Daryl. Daryl, very moving comments and very appropriate remarks, so thank you. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, I long to be with you in person. It is great to be with you today, but a lot has happened since the last time I addressed you. You may recall that my remarks to you at that time at our last summer meeting were very brief, but a lot has happened since then, and I want to go in order of events and actually focus on the last 6 months. The new judicial building was dedicated in February, and we had the dedication service out front of the building. Governor Deal was there. Our keynote speaker was Associate Justice Clarence Thomas, and he challenged us during his remarks to remain disciplined and courageous. He predicted that we would face challenges in the future, and he challenged us to remain disciplined and courageous as we face those challenges. He must have known something. I'm so glad that Justice Robert Benham was able to be a part of that dedication ceremony just before he retired. He's doing well, he's enjoying retirement, and I know he would long to be with you today. You should know that he is doing well, and he knows how much he means to us, and we all know how much we mean to him. He was replaced by Judge Carla Wong McMillan, our now newest justice on our court, and she came to us with a wealth of judicial experience, having come to us from the Court of Appeals. As y'all know, she's the first Asian Pacific American to serve on the state's highest court here in Georgia or any other court in the southern United States. What's unique about her time with us is that 100% of her time with our court, both for her and her staff, has been remote. It's been virtual, 100%. So our court has definitely entered into a new phase, but we are glad to have her here. She's jumped right in and she is doing well. And then the pandemic hit, the coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever name you want to call it. And looking back, I am confident and proud to be able to say that we were more prepared going into this crisis than we knew. We were prepared for a couple of reasons, 3 to be exact. First, I want to take us back to 2007. In 2007, somewhere around there, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court was Leah Sears, and she called me into her office. She called me into her office because some fellow by the name of Seth Kirschenbaum had approached her and said, you know, all the healthcare officials talk about a pandemic coming at some point. We don't know when, but it'll be coming. And it would be wise for our courts to begin preparing. And so he talked her into forming a task force, a committee, and then she asked me to chair that committee. She also gave me Michael Terry, who was a staunch advocate for the needs of the court system and the judiciary and the bar in the event of pandemic, and he was a very strong worker on our task force. I was not initially interested in that work because in my mind, I viewed it as the committee for the advancement of the preparation for the falling sky. But as we got into the work, I did realize that this was a real threat and that we needed to take it very seriously. One of the products of the commission was a bench book. This bench book provided model orders for local and statewide judicial emergencies. It focused on how to continue operations. It focused on the use and enhanced use of video conferencing technology. It provided surveys of applicable statutes and rules so we knew what the landscape would be. And that work was completed in 2009 and then updated in 2017. So that's the first thing we had going for us. We had to work pre-planning of that pandemic task force. The second thing that we had, which is not common amongst all the states, is we actually had a Judicial Emergency Act on the books. It's been on the books since 2004. And it was updated in 2011 following the work of the task force. We did see some legislative needs that needed to be addressed. The act was important because it kept us disciplined, as Justice Thomas urged us to be. It kept us disciplined and cabined in what we felt like our judicial powers were and were not during the midst of an emergency. And so we had a rules-based approach to how we responded to the challenges. And then the third thing that we had going for us was our judges and our court professionals and our lawyers across the state. I've said this often, our Constitution defines our judicial system as a unified court system, but that's the last time that word is used to describe our court system because in reality, we're anything but. But now I have to add this caveat, until now. We are as unified now as a court system as we've ever been. As this challenge has galvanized us, we've been unified and as a team in meeting the challenges. All the various classes of court, the clerks of court, and bar leadership. In the midst of this process, I have found hundreds of new heroes and friends who I've seen step up to every challenge just like Daryl Sutton has just done. Face real challenges and play team ball. I need to give special attention and recognition to my Supreme Court colleagues who have worked on our team and committed intense hours and innumerable hours to the efforts of planning and responding to this pandemic. Led first by Presiding Justice David Namias, Justice Michael Boggs, Justice Keith Blackwell, Justice Keith Peterson, our Clerk of Court, T. Barnes, y'all know Tia Milton, and our Public Information Officer, Jane Hanson. Without them, we would not have been able to do a fraction of what we've been able to do, not just as a court, but as a court system throughout the state. So those were the advantages that we had going in, and then the pandemic hit. In the first week or so in March, there was real fear spreading throughout the state and the courthouses across the state. And I have to tell you that when a virus hits your building, that fear is real. There's fear for the safety of the individuals, there's fear for the safety of your family. And there's a real tendency to want to just shut down operations altogether, go home and shelter hard in place. In March 12th, we worked with Judge LaGrua, the president of the Council of Superior Court Judges at the time, and Judge Brasher, Chief Judge of Fulton County, and we finalized a model local order to address the pandemic situations to where they would not shut down, but adjust operations to remain safe. Those were distributed on that day, March 12th. On March 13, on a Friday, those orders began to be executed by the chief judges in those circuits and began to be sent into our court. On that same day, Friday, the governor declared a statewide emergency. The next day, on Saturday, our team worked and prepared a statewide judicial emergency declaration, which was issued on that day. On March 16th, we had our first emergency meeting of the Judicial Council, and we've been meeting weekly, almost weekly, ever since. The big picture has been to be safe, be safe, be safe. But also, we need to keep operating. Our court system is critical to the balance of power, to the structured discipline of resolution of disputes. And we have to keep operating because only the courts can do what we can do, and critical needs have to be met. So while we're operating, we reduced operations to those which were critical and the core functions of our court system. But ever since that time, we've been building up services as we figured out how to do so, as we've settled in, as we perfected the tools, as we got better at video conferencing, as we've changed rules to expand the use of various tools. We've been adding back services to do more. We have backlogs that are piling up. We have to keep those to a minimum. We have to reduce those, but we also have to remember what we call the DBJ principle. That is, don't be a jerk. As we work hard to move cases, we still have to accommodate one another. And I believe our lawyers all across the state have been doing that. We've been extending our declaration every 30 days since then. The last extension was issued yesterday afternoon. The guts, the terms of what that extension calls for is essentially the same as the past order. But what the existing order does do, in addition to maintain the previous order's terms, is it lays out the plan for going green on July 14. It lays out the plan for opening up expanded operations on July 14. We anticipate that we will expand services and maintain the ban on jury trials, largely because we still have to be careful. We have to be careful, and we're taking a slower pace because when we call people into court, we compel their attendance. People do not come to court because they volunteer to do so. Lawyers are called in because their cases are on the calendar. We compel witnesses, we have subpoenas, we have jury summons. We have to be careful when we make people show up. We'll have to see about grand jury proceedings and what we'll do from there, but we expect things to go forward much more so beginning on July 14. We also created a COVID-19 task force that's chaired by Superior Court Judge Sean LaGrua. It includes representatives from the various classes of court and other stakeholders, including the state bar, prosecutors, public defenders, civil plaintiffs lawyers and defense attorneys, and the clerk of court, the sheriffs, and other members of the public. Their mission is to figure out what our operations will look like as we move forward, what our post-pandemic courts will look like. They've already begun working on a bench guide that will be done and published in the next few days. One of the byproducts of this pandemic is a budget crisis. In response to the budget crisis, the legislative leadership and the governor have instructed the court system, as well as everybody else, to submit budgets for 2021 with a 14% projected cut. For our court, 14% reduction looks like this. It would call for 19 furlough days for all employees, including the justices. Even though justice can't be furloughed, we have agreed to voluntarily participate, plus other significant cuts. And so that's what it looks like for us. You should know that it looks similarly for all aspects of the judicial system, maybe in different ways, but as severe for every entity within the judicial system. We are somewhat encouraged that the revenues coming in look like a 11% reduction as opposed to a 14%, and maybe even more like a 10%. But at this point, every 1% reduction is very welcome. We appreciate that this budget crisis is real. Judges have been prepared and are prepared to work harder with less. We do need, though, to be able to perform our constitutional duties, and we need to do so at a high level. We've been impressed that the legislative leadership has been sensitive to that message. We're also thankful for bar leadership speaking into that issue and supporting us in that regard. And let me say this about bar leadership. Bar leadership has been outstanding. Of course, you know that. They've helped create a temporary rule to expand the use of video CLE. You have helped to provide provisional licenses for law students graduating from law school so they can practice law while they're waiting for the delayed bar exam. You've worked with the governor's office to enable notaries to conduct their functions virtually. You've had rank and file folks like James, who stood watch and protected the state bar, but was humble and didn't want his name shared out to the public. I want to thank Darrell Sutton, especially for his exemplary leadership. He's risen to every challenge, whether it's the pandemic or the budget or just life in our country. He's been calm, he's been thorough, he's been systematic, he's been collaborative, and he's been humble. I want to congratulate my good friend, Don Jones. I'm excited. I'm excited for the opportunity to work so closely with you. You were an early friend when I came to the court, and we have grown together, and it's a joy to think that we have the opportunity to co-serve during this next coming year. As Darrell mentioned, we do have challenges. And as we look out and face those challenges, we could easily become cynical. But I'm confident. I'm confident because my ability to be cynical is limited. It's limited by the great experiences that I've had. It's limited by the reality of how my colleagues on my court have treated me. It's limited because I look at how you have treated me. I look at how you treat each other. I look at how you engage with your public and how you see your role in your communities and how you rise to this challenge and see your role as expanding your circle of influence in a meaningful way. You are all role models, and you make me proud. I am proud to be a judge, and I'm proud to be a Georgia lawyer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We're proud to know you and proud to call you a friend and proud that you're our Chief Justice. We're all better for you. Thank you very much. The Chief will now conduct the swearing in of our incoming Secretary, Treasurer, and President-elect, Tony Del Campo, Sally Akins, and Elizabeth Fight, who I think have now joined us on the screen. Congratulations, you three.
Okay, so can everybody hear and see? I think Sarah's got this thing down. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege to be able to swear in my good friends into your new roles. I hope you're ready for the challenge that lies ahead. I know you are. I will swear you in at this time. If you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do swear or affirm.
I do swear or affirm
That I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform all the duties incumbent on me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as a member of the Judicial Council of Georgia. Excuse me, as a member of the Executive Committee.
As a member of the Executive Committee
of the State Bar of Georgia.
Of the State Bar of Georgia.
According to the best of my ability and understanding.
According to the best of my ability and understanding.
And I will endeavor to improve.
And I will endeavor to improve
the administration of justice in this state.
The administration of justice in this state.
For the benefit of the public.
For the benefit of the public.
As well as the bench and bar.
As well as the bench and bar.
And I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of Georgia.
And the Constitution of the State of Georgia.
And the rules of the State Bar of Georgia.
and the
and the
rules
rules of the State Bar of Georgia.
So help me God.
So
So
help
help
me
me
God.
God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony, Sally, Elizabeth, congratulations. I know, because I know all three of you so well, that we are in very good hands with y'all taking over your new positions. So now has come an important time. It is Dawn's opportunity to be sworn in and become the 68th president of the State Bar of Georgia. Swearing her in today will be Fulton County State Court Judge, the Honorable Patsy Porter. And then following that, she will be introduced by the 45th president of the State Bar of Georgia, the first woman president of the State Bar of Georgia, and the 104th president of the American Bar Association, Linda Klein. Dawn, let me be the first to say congratulations.
Good morning, members of this most honorable profession, family and friends that are joining us, President Sutton, and officers and members of the Board of Governors of the State Bar of Georgia. I am happy to be here for this historic Zoom State Bar meeting of Georgia. And for those of you who know me, you know that is saying a lot. I am filled with great pride as I stand here today on the shoulders of Judges Isabel Gates Webster, Romay Turner Power, Barbara Harris, Attorney Donald Hollowell, Justice Robert Benham, Judge Clarence Cooper, trailblazing men and women of the legal profession. Today, the seeds of their labor and love is being sworn in today as president of the State Bar of Georgia, a role that Don is well prepared for, beginning in 2005 as president of the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys. In that role, she learned how to work with people from all walks of life in all professions. I remember her theme from that year, and I think of it often whenever I see her. Her theme was bridging the gaps for a better tomorrow. And it is truly as relevant today as it was 15 years ago when Dawn began her role in many roles of leadership in our profession. For such a time as this, Dawn has ascended to the president of the State Bar of Georgia as the 68th president of this profession. For such a time as this, Dawn, if you would please raise your right hand and repeat after me as I have the honor of administering your oath of office. I, Dawn Jones,
I, Dawn Jones,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will execute the office of president
that I will execute the office of president
of the State Bar of Georgia
of the State Bar of Georgia
and perform all the duties
and perform all the duties
incumbent upon me faithfully,
faithfully,
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and understanding,
and understanding,
and agreeable to the policies,
and agreeable to the policies,
bylaws,
bylaws,
and rules
and rules
and regulations
and regulations
of the State Bar of Georgia,
of the State Bar of Georgia,
the laws and Constitution
the laws and Constitution
of the State of Georgia,
of the State of Georgia,
and the Constitution of the United States.
and the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
For such a time as this, congratulations to President Don M. Jones.
Good morning. Thank you, Daryl, for your selfless service. One of the most essential things in a democratic society is for the public to have trust and confidence in our judicial system, in our whole justice system. In my career, I've watched our bar grow and be strengthened by the addition of diverse lawyers. And as our bar looks more like the public we serve, we are part of the solution for assuring the public's trust in the justice system. Yes, we should celebrate that we have come a long way, but our work, unfortunately, is only beginning. It is with this backdrop that we celebrate the 4th woman and 2nd person of color to serve as State Bar President. I believe we also celebrate the first Hispanic officer of our State Bar, our new secretary, who holds a position I first held 26 years ago. Our new State Bar President is uniquely qualified to represent all Georgia's lawyers. That has been affirmed by all the awards she has received and all the leadership roles she has handled tirelessly and perfectly. She worked at a very large law firm. She worked as in-house counsel and is now a solo practitioner representing our fellow citizens resolve their personal injury matters. Before law school, she earned a nursing degree at her beloved UVA, a master's degree in critical care nursing from Georgetown, and was an ICU nurse for 14 years, working at Emory Hospital and Grady Hospital, where she led the trauma nursing staff. What a perfect time for a nurse and lawyer, someone who knows how to heal our bodies and our souls, to lead us as president of our State Bar. Dawn, we are asking a lot of you, and we know that you will make us proud. Thank you so much for offering to serve our State Bar at this very critical time. Ladies and gentlemen, the 58th President of the State Bar of Georgia, Dawn M. Jones, RN, MSN, JD. Thank you.
I have to say that it has been a complete and total honor to have all 3 of the past female woman presidents of the State Bar of Georgia participate in our agenda today. It means a lot to me personally, and I can't express how grateful I am for the legacy that you've left us. Point in fact, behind me, coming up to this role next year and the year after, are 2 other extraordinary women, Elizabeth Fite and Sally Akins. And the fact that we have, as Linda mentioned, our first Hispanic executive committee member and officer coming up behind them just shows how far we have in fact come as a bar association, and it makes me excited about the years ahead. Having said that, I'm going to go now into my prepared remarks, and so that we can take care of the rest of this business. As many of you know, I was a registered nurse who worked in critical care settings for almost 15 years. I'm really proud of that. And I was a great nurse, not just saying it to say it. I was a really great nurse. I was often in charge, supervising all of the other nurses and staff during the course of a 12-hour shift. I was a great nurse because I believed that my goal for every patient I cared for was to ensure that their health status at the end of my shift was much improved compared to their health status at the beginning of my shift. I understood then, and continue to understand now, that the science of nursing is important. It's important in how one uses it to improve someone else's health. When I became a lawyer, I was very grateful for every opportunity I've had in my legal career to draw from, use, and regularly apply my nursing background and experience to the clients that I serve and the cases that I litigate. We talk about health, and you're going to hear this recurring theme of health, but I do understand it. I understand what it means. I also, as a lawyer, rely heavily on references and sources, like the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, which defines health as the condition of being sound in body, mind, or spirit, freedom from physical disease or pain, or a condition in which someone or something is thriving or doing well. Again, I was a great nurse. I understand health. When the news coverage of coronavirus as this new, deadly, and highly infectious and contagious disease began to grow, I paid attention. By early March, I think we all began to realize that our lives were being impacted by this disease, even if we weren't quite clear exactly how and to what extent that was occurring. Well, as coronavirus grew into a pandemic, killing well over, I think as of this morning, 120,000 Americans, we know this is a crisis. This is a health crisis. Not surprisingly, COVID-19 scrapped every single plan I had made beginning with the summer of last year in regards to my upcoming bar year. And I was okay with that. I understood that that needed to happen. I understood because I understand the value of health. We're not going to gather as a bar association, putting members and guests at risk unnecessarily until we can make those gatherings, those conferences, those committee meetings, those section meetings, those receptions as safe as possible per the applicable science and per our public health officials. That's why, as challenging as it was today to collectively meet, for the foreseeable future, we're going to need to be flexible. We're going to need to be patient. We're going to need to do the work and move the ball forward in any way we can. And for my part, I truly appreciate everyone's patience this morning as we work to continue the work of the bar during this important annual meeting. Maintaining good health is important, and we all understand and know that. So as the coronavirus spread, I began to look at revising my plans for the bar year. Remember, I'm a nurse. Once a nurse, always a nurse. And I'm a nurse who knows about health. As I began planning my bar year under the cautions and restrictions of COVID-19, another crisis developed. Although the seeds of this new crisis had been planted 400 years ago, over the last few months, we've witnessed the brutal killings of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and so many other tragic deaths of African Americans. These images, these stories, these lives are being and have been televised, and people are now paying more attention than ever before. Several of the folks speaking before me have also talked about this and about how pivotal and pinnacle and how extraordinary this moment is that we're facing today. As we've seen over the last several weeks, there are millions of people of varying ages, races, ethnicities, sexual orientation, religions, socioeconomic status, and geographic location, among other variances, throughout this country and the world, protesting racism and demanding justice for all. This is happening because so many Americans now realize that we have not come as far as we thought we had as a country and as a nation over the last 400 years. Many now realize that some still hold bigotry and racist ideals of white supremacy in their hearts. This affects not only society and our community, but it affects us as individuals, as lawyers, as judges, as member of this bar. This too is a crisis. This too is a pandemic. A pandemic, because I like definitions, is an outbreak of a disease that occurs over a wide geographic area and affects an exceptionally high proportion of the population. Racism, racial bias, bigotry, these are the antithesis of health. And remember, health is the condition of being sound in body, mind, or spirit, freedom from physical disease or pain, or a condition in which someone or something is thriving or doing well. In comparison, racism, racial bias, bigotry, and an unfair, unequal justice system are not healthy. From my perspective as a former critical care nurse, today we are facing two health crises, two pandemics. One pandemic was brought about by COVID-19, the other by systemic racism. Both pandemics are deadly. So today, I sit here as a Black woman, as a lawyer, and as a former nurse, facing these two deadly pandemics on the very first day of my presidency to the State Bar of Georgia, where I believe I serve as the 58th president. I don't want to jump ahead of anyone else. And I want you to know that as I sit here, I stand ready. I stand ready with plans to continue the work that this bar has done through its prior leadership and prior amazingly dedicated past presidents. I stand ready to build on that foundation of access to justice and ensuring that those who are underserved receive legal advocates to work on their behalf. I stand ready with plans to expand opportunities for hundreds of law student members who currently work with this bar, but are not necessarily gainfully employed and whose prospects have lately been curbed. I stand ready to support new lawyers, younger lawyers, and others who are seeking employment, who are unemployed, or who otherwise seek to connect with others so that they can develop and improve their skill set to better serve their clients in the system of justice. I also stand ready to directly address bigotry, racism, racial bias, and the inequalities in our current justice system. As we, the State Bar of Georgia, has set as our purpose for our existence, as mentioned by past President Patrice Perkins Hooker in her lovely prayer, the State Bar exists to foster among the members of the bar of the state the principles of duty and service to the public, to improve the administration of justice, and to advance the science of law. That's our stated purpose as a mandatory bar association. That's what we do. As Darrell mentioned in his remarks, I realize these conversations are not easy. They're not easy at all. They're not comfortable. And I understand that we may not be best equipped to engage in those conversations and to make them productive and comfortable so that people can share and listen and learn in a comfortable and protected environment. And I believe that dialogue, that conversation, is a way for us to garner better and more comprehensive understanding of where we are today. That must happen if we are to affect change. I believe we as a bar association can and will do more to ensure a justice system that treats everyone equally and fairly, regardless of the color of their skin. I believe there is space for us to help improve the health of a bar association. To help me start that work today, I'm asking the Board of Governors to approve a new committee, a new standing committee that was circulated with the stack of State Bar committees for your approval today. This committee, named Seeking Equal Justice and Addressing Racism and Racial Bias Committee, was included in the committee assignments, again, that you received last evening. And just for the folks who don't have a copy of it, I would like to read it, and it's up on your screen as well. Seeking Equal Justice and Addressing Racism and Racial Bias Committee. This standing committee shall consider, analyze, strategize, and recommend to the Executive Committee and the Board of Governors how best to, 1, engage, listen, and learn from all who are willing to share their experiences with bigotry and racism. 2, identify, address, and eradicate bigotry, racism, and racial bias in the administration of justice in this state. 3, encourage, partner with, and assist local bar associations and other law-related organizations, entities, and agencies to accomplish these goals statewide. And 4, otherwise ensure an equal system of justice for all. In addition, this committee shall assist the Executive Committee and the Board of Governors in the execution and implementation of the above enumerated actions. I hope that when we discuss and vote on the committee assignments for this year later on the agenda, that I have your support and your help to approve this particular new standing committee. This committee, I believe, is necessary to help us formulate action plans after communicating, listening, analyzing, and evaluating the systemic inequities involving racism, bias, and bigotry that is still present in our practice, in our justice system, and in our state today. In partnership with that effort, and hopefully with your blessings as to this committee, there are several bar programs that are currently doing some of the work that we'd like to continue and support, including Basics, which specifically addresses recidivism and has been a proven program to decrease and to contain the recidivism rate in our state bar. The Indigent Defense Program is another program which is self-explanatory, as is the Committee to Promote Inclusion in the Profession, which among other goals works to improve the pipeline of minority law students and lawyers into the profession and into the bar. I hope you will work with me. We've received a lot of comments from our published statement that have surprised a lot of people. They haven't surprised me because, again, I'm a Black woman, I'm an attorney, and I'm a Black woman attorney in the State Bar of Georgia. Georgia's not alone in facing these issues. I don't believe there's a state in this country that doesn't have the concerns and problems that we are attempting to face today. I hope that you will work with me because I cannot do anything well by myself. There's an old saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. A similar saying is, if you want to travel fast, travel alone. But if you want to travel far, travel together. Either way, I need your help. I need your support. We are all elected to serve the State Bar of Georgia. And I thank you for the privilege and honor of leading the bar this year. And I stand ready to work with you. Before I say here's to our health, which is my last sentence in my remarks, I have to say, Daryl Sutton, I love your statements about family. We are family. Like family, we do not agree. Like family, we sometimes have to learn to communicate with each other, but like family, we all have the same purpose. And I can't be more proud of taking on the leadership of this bar than I am with this group of leaders. So here's to our health. Thank you. So weirdly, I get to go ahead and switch gears. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Thank you. I see the applause. Okay. So we're now going to move into the portion, the business portion of our program, of our agenda, of our annual meeting. And so for anyone who doesn't want to stay on with us for the next couple of hours as we work through the agenda, please, I don't think you'll miss anything. But thank you for participating. I also want to reiterate, because I know there were a number of people who joined early or who might not have otherwise heard Daryl stating the rules that are going to help us handle the action items that we need to handle. So here are the rules. For the attendance report, for anybody who has a question, please make sure your full name is listed on the participants list. If it shows your email address or something else, you can hover over your name until you see the more in the blue box. Click rename and enter your name. Please be patient. Sarah Cool, Communications Director Extraordinaire, is transferring people, as you can see, on and off camera. So the plan is, if you're making comments or asking questions, you're making a motion, We're going to tell you what to do, and you're going to be on camera unless you cut off your video feed, but you're going to be on camera. She's going to have to bring you up, unmute you, and then I believe you'll also have to unmute yourself. Please note that only board members are allowed to vote when the polls pop up. Unfortunately, we were not able to live stream on Facebook as planned this Zoom meeting. As a result, there are a significant number of people participating who are not current 2020, 2021 current Board of Governors members. We have a way of checking after the votes have been taken to ensure that the appropriate Board of Governors members have actually effectuated a vote. But we're asking for your help. If you are not currently a Board of Governors member serving on this incoming board, you are not able to vote even if a voting poll pops up on your screen. When it does pop up on your screen and you vote, we will run a report at the end of the meeting to verify only board members have voted. On some devices, you have to scroll down a little to see the vote or submit button. Another point to help us work through the rest of the agenda. If you'd like to speak during the meeting, please click the raise hand that's on the menu on the screen. Please click raise hand and you will be called on in order of those who have their hands raised. And Sarah, I think, is going to help me with that. So you're going to be recognized and then you're going to get pulled up onto the screen so you can state whether it's a motion, a second, or any other comments or questions that you have. Lastly, you may also ask questions through chat. So you can raise your hand and ask questions verbally, or you can ask questions through Q&A. Excuse me, I think I said chat. Through Q&A. We will answer those questions during the meeting. Throughout the meeting, someone will be responding to your questions written through the Q&A menu. The chat feature is turned on, but it will not be monitored, and we will not be addressing questions posted on chat. So if you have a question, you have a comment, you want to participate and be heard, you need to raise your hand to be recognized, or you need to write a question in the Q&A, and it will be and a response will be written to that Q&A question. I hope that helps clarify our progress from now on. And unless we run into problems, my expectation is that we have a motion presented, and we have a second from whoever is able to make that. Again, you have to be recognized and pulled up if it's not an executive committee member. And if it becomes too problematic, then we will handle it the way we handled the March meeting, which was essentially Daryl making motions, and for the most part, I was seconding those for expediency's sake, because we wanted to avoid the challenges of having to, and the time it would take to have people pulled up. But I'd like to try it this way because for the foreseeable future, this is how we're conducting our business. Having said all that, does anybody have any immediate questions about that? Did I cover it, guys? Okay. All right. So first, I'd like to welcome, per your agenda, there are new officers and new board members. The new officers of the State Bar of Georgia were just installed. You are aware of them, but I will give our names again just because. Me, Elizabeth Fight as President-elect, Sally Akins as Treasurer, Tony Del Campo as Secretary, Daryl Sutton as immediate past president. I know he's trying not to grin too hard. Burt Hummel as YLD president. Alyssa Haynes as YLD president-elect, and someone else also trying not to smile too hard. Will Davis as YLD immediate past president. New board members, many of whom participated on an early Zoom breakfast meeting this morning, include Austin Jones, Alcovey Circuit Post 2, Danny Durham, Augusta Circuit Post 2, Alex Shali, Chattahoochee Circuit Post 3, Kenneth Crawford, Douglas Circuit, Josh Bozen, Member at Large Post 3, Mitchell Shook, Middle Circuit Post 1, Judge Shondina Cruz Morris, Stone Mountain Circuit Post 3, Matt Hennessy, Waycross Circuit Post 1, and Hugh McCullough, who was just appointed to fill an unexpired one-year term of Carl Varnado for the Atlantic Circuit Post 2. Judge McCullough is from Hinesville. With that said, I'd ask Tony Del Campo to administer the roll call.
All right, good morning, folks. Let me first say I look forward to serving with my fellow board members and my fellow executive committee members and my fellow officers this year. Thank you for the honor of having elected me to serve as your secretary. Now, generally, we will be sending out the roll call and passing it out. Obviously, we cannot do that in this format. So what we're going to do is, has already been stated, we're going to count you absent or present based on the information that we have with this Zoom call. If you are only present with your phone number, we may not have that phone number in our system to be able to recognize who you are. So if that is the case, if you would please send me an email or Sarah Cool, and we will make sure to count you present. And you can email me at my office address, tony@dcglawfirm.com. Also, make sure you check your virtual board books to make sure that your attendance in previous meetings has been accounted for properly. And if it has not, please make sure to send me an email so that I can make sure you are properly accounted for. Lastly, if you need to be excused in any future meetings while this year goes forward, please make sure you send me an email so that I can make sure that I can mark you as excused. So having said that, that is sort of my role here today, to make sure that you are counted, and we will make sure to do that as has been stated previously. Thank you.
And just realizing I still did a Ken Hodges, not looking at my, only Judge Hodges will get that in the executive committee. I went a little bit out of order, I think just because I was so emotional this morning. So sorry about that. The future meeting schedule, I refer you to pages 11 and 12. They, as I stated in my remarks that were a bit early, we are, as of today, as of right now, we plan to meet as scheduled at the venues as scheduled. We have contracts and obligations with each of those venues in October and January, and in October, January, March, and next June. As we did for the March meeting and as we did for this meeting, at the appropriate time, your executive committee members and the State Bar staff, with the help of Paula, Jeff, and Sharon, will review the terms. We'll look to ensure that there's safety plans. We've already received them for the upcoming September executive committee retreat. We know that there are hotels and facilities that are putting plans in place. We want to ensure that they make sense and they make us comfortable. And ultimately, you'll have to decide if and when we start meeting together. You will ultimately have to decide that for yourself, but be assured that we are going to make every effort to make sure we, as a nurse, I can tell you, we cannot guarantee that someone won't be at risk. So ultimately, it's your individual decision, your individual choice that we all have to make. But to the best of our ability, we're going to do our utmost to make sure that we put ourselves in the best position to do the work we need to do and maintain safety of our health for each other as a family. So I'm going to go right on in and get back on the agenda and go into the treasurer's report. I'm going to turn it over to Sally Aikens, our new treasurer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I join Tony in thanking you for your support and confidence in me to become your treasurer, and also am looking forward to leading this fine group, especially under Dawn's wonderful leadership. I think it's just a wonderful time, and I'm just looking forward to great things that I'm going to see her do, I know. So on to the business at hand. You can find the results of the financial statements through April the 30th at pages 13 through 26 of the board book. The good news is there's no surprises to be found. Moving on to the 2020-2021 budget, that can be found at pages 27 through 58 of the board book. I'm just going to hit a couple highlights for y'all, and we've got Ron Turner here in the event that anybody has some questions. Overall, the budget has a combined net income of $215,000. This results from a loss from bar operations of $336,000, offset by a profit of $551,000 from the bar center. You will also see that there is no change in bar dues. As y'all will recall, they remain the same at $254 per active member and $127 per inactive member. Again, as we discussed previously, and Elizabeth outlined so wonderfully at our last meeting, CCLC will provide a grant of up to $300,000 to cover bar operation expenses. Due to the overall efforts, most specifically by this bar staff, salary increases are set to be 0%. Part of that is due to the current coronavirus pandemic, but also, again, due to overall belt tightening efforts. The budget also includes the efforts and effects of the items approved by the Programs Committee. You will recall there was a wholesale review of all of the programs, the Personnel Committee, again, to the raises, and the Executive Committee attempted and did cut expenses wherever possible. The bar worked very hard to decrease the budgeted expenses as much as possible. Just want to emphasize that because it was hard work, and they should be well commended for that. The meeting budget was not decreased for the upcoming year as a result of the pandemic. It was assumed that, as Dawn has just told us, all of the Board of Governors meetings would continue as they have in the past, although of course they didn't this time. We were recently notified by the director of the Georgia Public Defenders Council that, given recent budget cut requests from the governor, that they will move from the bar building into state offices and will no longer rent space at our bar center. That will be a non-renewal of their lease, which expires in October. So what that means is the above mentioned profit that I just discussed does not include the loss of revenue due to the Public Defenders Council moving. So how this will impact what I just told you, if there is not a replacement tenant found, the total loss in revenue in the budget is approximately $366,000 for 2021. And it will be, that would translate into a $550,000 loss on an annualized basis. So if no tenant can be found to replace that, the net income that I just mentioned would change from a $215,000 profit to a loss of $150,000. So you've got a $300 and something thousand swing there, of course. So I can assure you that Jeff Davis and the rest of the bar staff has been working. Well, firstly, they worked very hard not to lose the tenant, but secondly, have begun efforts as soon as this was made official to replace the tenant. So that is well on its way, I hope, to being resolved. And that is your 2020-2021 budget.
Thank you, Sally. Are there any questions? I'm looking to see if I have any raised hands. Are there any questions regarding the information in your board book or the information Sally just presented? I don't see any. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I don't see any raised hands. So if not, we're going to go forward with addressing the state bar budget. This is the budget for our upcoming bar year. Sally, please let us know. You want to go ahead and present the budget?
That is your 2021 budget for your consideration.
That's about it. And again, it's on pages 27 to 58. Is there a motion to approve this budget, the 2020-21 budget as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the 2020-2021 state bar budget as presented. Is there any discussion? Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to ask Sarah to put up the poll. And again, as a reminder, unless you are a current 2020-2021 Board of Governors member or Executive Committee member, please do not vote. The pop-up screen should come up now. Sarah, as a reminder, folks who are on a cell phone who called in, are they able to vote?
No. If you're just on a cell phone, you can't. You have to be on the computer or a device.
So the folks who have called in and have not, who have otherwise called in, accessed this Zoom meeting by phone, are not going to be able to see a pop-up, and they're therefore not going to be able to vote. Okay, when you're ready, Sarah. Was there a Q&A? I'll let somebody answer that. Whenever you're ready, Sarah.
Okay. Do you want me to give those a minute like we did at the spring meeting?
Please, yes.
Okay.
Considering the
That's
glitches, we're all learning, so let's not rush this.
Dawn, a question popped up in the Q&A.
I saw it, and I think somebody was going to respond in writing. I'm just not sure who.
Okay.
Well, actually, we got time while we're doing this. I saw Nicole's. We previously, I'm going to refer you, Nicole Lee. The question was, did we previously vote on the funding for basics at the last board meeting? In January, there was a discussion about basics, and the minutes, the draft minutes that are I believe are in your board book, which actually should have been part of our discussion as well.
Dawn, I think those were previously approved at the spring Board of Governors meeting.
They were, thank you. So that has, I'm not sure if they're in the board book this time. Can somebody confirm that? The minutes from the January meeting.
I don't believe they
So that answers your question, Nicole.
Don, while we're waiting on the vote, may I correct, well, not correct, but amend and add to my remarks in my always over eagerness to be brief and not take too much time. Sometimes I'm a little too brief. So let me say this. What a lot of the Board of Governors members don't know is the huge amount of time and effort the Finance Committee puts into putting the budget together. And I was very remiss in not mentioning that when I presented the budget. I got the chance to sit in on one of its meetings. The committee is chaired by Patrice. It's just really amazing how much time and energy and thought goes into that. So please excuse me for not having said that previously. The other thing I want to mention is Ron Turner, who is just an unbelievable asset to your bar, and you should know that. He's tirelessly works on all these things and knows all the details. And most importantly, and impactful to me personally, is that he's always available and answers any questions, especially and including my silly and dumb ones sometimes. So that's all. Just sorry for being remiss.
And in follow up to that, let me identify, I actually don't have a list of Finance Committee members handy right now. Sally's already recognized the chair. I would have to pull that list up. But we're going to take a moment, if somebody could help us pull up the list of Finance Committee members, and feel free to go ahead and just read those names off, because they have worked many hours, multiple meetings, and I just really need to emphasize Sally's comment about revising the budget. Belt tightening is not, it's the closest description that I can use, but it doesn't quite suffice. The number of times this budget has been revisited the last 6 months and discussed in detail, and all of the work behind it to put forward what you see today. But we would be remiss if we didn't recognize the Finance Committee chair, vice chair, and members of that committee. And in the meantime, are we still waiting for the poll?
No, I shared the results.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. Does anybody have the Finance Committee members' names?
Do you want me to just, oh, Ron? Okay.
Jeff, if you can help us get those, and we can mention those in a little bit.
Ron
Please.
is ready.
Sorry?
I've got them. I've got them.
Okay.
All right. We have the chairperson is Patrice Perkins Hooker. Vice chair is Lynette Davis. Our members are Patricia Amari, John Rook, Ivy King, Dent, Damon Elmore, Patricia Gorham, Sean Keller, Amy Howell, Elena Kaplan, Judge Shandina Morris, Elise Myers, Elizabeth O'Neill, John Pinnell, Dennis Sanders, Daniel Snipes, Martin Balbuena, Nancy Whaley, and the ex officio members are Elizabeth Fight, Burt Hummel, and Dawn. And I want to take a special thank you to all of our finance committee members. I really appreciate all the feedback forth and time and effort everyone has put in and helped us through this process. So thank you all.
Thank you, Ron. And thanks, you guys. Again, this is all a work in progress, everyone. So we appreciate your patience. Okay, so the next agenda item are the financial resolutions that we handle at the annual meeting every year. Sally, I think we're going to address those one by one.
Okay, they're found on page 59 of the board book.
So the first one is authorization for president to secure blanket position bonds for officers and staff. Is that right? Is there a motion to approve this authorization for president to secure blanket position bonds for officers and staff?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded that the board approves authorization for president to secure blanket position bonds for officers and staff. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I ask Sarah to put up the poll for all those to vote. One vote.
Okay. We had previously decided to vote on all three of these together.
Got it. Okay.
I only have one. Sorry.
Okay. Let me ask this just to be clear. So the second is I'm going to go ahead and ask us to vote on all three together, but I'm going to go ahead and address them as motions separately, if that's okay with everybody. Okay. Actually, let's just address them as all three because we had a motion, a second, and we haven't had a vote yet. So we're going to move to approve the authorization for president to secure blanket position bonds for officers and staff. And sorry, I didn't realize we were doing these together. The designation of depositories for general operations of the State Bar of Georgia and the employment of independent auditing firm to audit the financial records of the State Bar of Georgia for the fiscal year 2020-2021. There are three separate resolutions. We're going to take them together in one vote if there's a first and second.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion about taking these as a group or anyone who has concerns or questions about the three financial resolutions that, again, we handle every year? Okay, seeing none, please, Sarah, put up the poll for all three financial resolutions.
That's 30 seconds. and a minute.
So the results are that these financial resolutions pass, as did the 2020-2021 State Bar budget, in case I hadn't stated that. Okay, the next action item for your consideration are indeed the minutes of our last two Board of Governors meetings, the one from January 11th and the one from April 3rd. They are in your board book at pages 60 to 72. Tony, do you have any comments about them before we go ahead and vote?
I did not have any comments, any suggestions or redactions.
This is a weird time because Sally actually took them, but the new secretary today is Tony. I've been there. But just wanted to make sure you didn't have anything to add. So is there a motion to approve? Let me ask this, Sarah, are they individual or are they collectively on the poll?
They're collective.
Okay, all right. So let me ask, is there a motion and second to approve both sets of Board of Governors minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the January 11, 2020 and the April 3rd, 2020 Board of Governors minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Sarah, please post the poll. We really do need some music. I'm so serious. So quiet. I'm not singing. But
The Jeopardy music seems like it could be appropriate.
I also think 45 seconds is plenty long because people pretty much stop voting at 30 seconds.
okay. Okay.
So that is 45.
Okay. So the minutes were approved as presented, both for January 11th and April 3rd. Thank you. Next, I turn your attention to the approval of the members of the state disciplinary boards. As listed on your agenda, they are as follows. Jennifer Elizabeth Dunlap from Columbus for term ending 2023. Tamika Rashon Daniel from Macon, term ending 2023. And lay member Connie S. Cooper from Pooler, Georgia, term ending 2023. We're going to take those as a group. Is there a motion to approve these State Disciplinary Board and State Disciplinary Review Board members?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Okay. And for your benefit, I'm counting in my head a slow 5 to make sure. So Sarah, if you wouldn't mind putting up the voting for the State Disciplinary Board and State Disciplinary Review Board.
Okay, that's 45 seconds.
Okay, that motion has passed. And so far, all the votes appear to have passed unanimously for the benefit of the minutes. Next action item, there's a formal advisory opinion board. The persons who have been appointed to those to that formal advisory opinion board are as follows. Member at large, Letitia A. McDonald from Atlanta, term ending 2022. Mary A. Prabula from Atlanta, term ending 2022. Jeffrey Schneider, Atlanta, term ending 2022. Sherry Boston Decatur, term ending 2022. And Jennifer Romig, Atlanta, term ending 2022. Is there a motion to approve all of these formal advisory opinion board members?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the formal advisory opinion board members listed on your agenda. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing no discussion, I'm going to ask Sarah to put up the poll.
So Dawn, that was another one that we had grouped together. But I can create a
sorry.
poll. I
I'm
can
sorry.
create a poll if you want me to.
No. Did I not present them together? Did I do something weird? I'm sorry. Are you talking about all of the boards together?
The state disciplinary boards and the formal advisory committee board
Got it.
was together. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. All right. Jeff, I'm looking at your walkthrough. And so these are listed as separate. Okay. Can you create a poll since we didn't vote on that until just now? And if we need to move something else, we will and come back. But can you create a poll for the former advisory opinion board? Because we haven't voted on it.
I can.
Okay. So I'm going to move on if that's okay. I'll probably need to ask Sarah this question. Are there any other items that I have listed separately under each topic that are put together on the polls?
Other than all of the committees being together, I think that's all.
Okay, so let me ask specifically. You're putting together one for formal advisory opinion board. ICLE Board of Trustees, is that separate from Georgia Legal Services appointments in the polling?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Dawn, I think all the way Sarah did it is she grouped all of the polls by letter number. So everything in B is under one poll, everything in C. So the next time we do a Zoom meeting, and hopefully we will not, we will coordinate that better.
Okay, no problem. This is all, actually the glitches make me feel way more relaxed.
Right.
This is a family.
Exactly.
I'm just sorry because we for the folks who don't know, everybody works really hard to put this together, and I'm sorry it doesn't appear to be as seamless as it should be in light of how much work these folks have put behind the scenes into making today seamless. So I'm not fussing at anybody. I'm just thrown because I know how much work has been put into this, and again, these glitches make me feel a little bit more comfortable and at home. So
It's ready. I can launch the formal advisory opinion.
thank you, ma'am. And let me answer the question posed by Steph L. about whether the members of the new standing committee seeking equal justice, addressing racism and equal justice been appointed. No, they have not.
I think that's Judge Lawton Stevens who's asking.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge Stevens. Yes, for the anonymous attendee who asked, will there be availability to attend the meetings remotely via Zoom for subsequent meetings as an alternative to physical attendance? Yes. We recognize that folks are medically fragile, folks are not comfortable for various and sundry reasons. We understand that you may not want to attend a meeting in person, even if it's possible. And so we're going to ensure that to the furthest extent possible, including these on-site Board of Governors meetings over the course of the next year, that if we have the capability for you to Zoom or otherwise attend the meeting virtually, we will make sure that option is available.
Okay, I shared the results there.
Okay. Okay, that also looks to be a unanimous passing of the formal advisory board, opinion board. Okay, so under topic C, approval of ICLE Board of Trustees. I appointed Ana Maria Martinez from Decatur for a term to end 2023 to the ICLE board. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
There's a question from Derek Pope, but I'm not sure if it was from before. Do you want me to click on him to allow him to talk and answer
Yes,
it?
please, please.
Okay. Okay, Derek, we should be able to hear you.
Good morning. The only question I had, Dawn, and congratulations to you, to every new member of the executive committee, and all of the very fine officers of this magnanimous and outstanding organization. The only question I had was there a mechanism for guests who are attending the Board of Governors meeting to electronically sign a roll as it is when we're with each other in present, or does it automatically capture it? I didn't. It was just an administrative question on that nature. That's all.
It captures it. We have everyone.
Thank you.
You'll be counted, Derek.
That's good to know. I remember attending these Board of Governors meeting as a new lawyer and proudly signing the role as a guest. I also remember verbally voting when I didn't realize I shouldn't have been, but that's another story. Okay. So we are ready for the poll. Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, that's 45 seconds.
Okay, that motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Next are the Georgia Legal Services Program appointments. As listed on your agenda, they include Seth Bruckner, Atlanta, appointed for each of these folks are appointed for a 2-year term. Marquetta Bryant from Atlanta, Keisha Davis from Tucker, Laverne Gaskins from Augusta, Matthew Howell from Atlanta, and Megan Magruder from Atlanta. Is there a motion and second to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded to approve these GLSP appointments. Is there any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Sarah, can you put up the poll? Someone was playing music a minute ago. You might need to turn that back on. I'm just saying.
That was me.
I'm just saying, I wouldn't mind.
It feels like being in an elevator while waiting for these.
Okay, that's 45 seconds.
Judge Cannon, I'm going to remember your comment. Okay, so that was unanimously approved, the GLSP appointments. Thank you very much. Next are the, and I believe, well, just about last, this is for the approval of the 2020-2021 committees. We're going to take out of turn, we're going to lump the rest of these committees, the packet you all received were the committees we're going to vote on next. You got two documents. One was the index, and the other, the lengthy document, was a set of committee assignments for 2020, 2021. At the top of that packet of the second set of documents was the new standing committee that I just referenced earlier in my remarks. I would like to take that standing committee vote separately. And Sarah, you did. I think you're ready for this, for these two votes.
I got that.
Oh, good. You do?
For standing and then your new committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Paula because we're going to take two votes on this standing committee. And as a reminder, again, you all have that information. I'm not going to read it, but if anybody needs that, let me know and Sarah can put it back up on the screen. But this is the new Seeking Equal Justice and Addressing Racism and Racial Bias Committee. We're going to take two votes. The first vote will be a Keller vote, and the second vote, if it passes Keller, will be a vote to hopefully approve the committee. And I just, one thing I don't think I said in my earlier remarks was that I don't expect that the work that we're going to be doing to be focused solely in this committee. I expect and hope that this committee will help us move some action items forward that can then be peeled off and partnered with other programs, like whether it's ICLE, lawyer wellness, basics, iCivics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
All
Paula?
right. Yes, thanks, Dawn, and congratulations to Daryl for a great year and Dawn for a great year to come. It's been a pleasure working with both of you. You all know Keller. You've heard me do the speech a million times, and you know that what it says is that a unified bar, a mandatory bar, can't spend its members' bar dues on activity that is political or ideological. And it is hard for me to imagine that a committee formed to eradicate bias in the justice system would not fall within Keller. Keller says that we can spend dues money on activities related to regulating the profession or on activities to promote the quality of legal services available to people in the state. But I told Dawn that I thought we might want to do a Keller vote for this committee because things have become so politicized that, in fact, there are challenges in two jurisdictions to things like this, committees formed around diversity, around access to justice. And so just out of caution and as your legal counsel, I thought it would be good to have the board confirm that it believes that within the scope of our mission to promote activities to promote the quality of legal services available to people in the state, that this committee falls within our mandate. I think the poll you're going to do is, the Keller poll is about germaneness, whether this matter is germane to the scope and purpose of the bar. And I think, Sarah, do you have that one ready?
I do.
Okay. And for my 2 cents, I failed to mention in the comments, and it will leave this poll up. I'm not pursuing this because it's political. And I think, but I understand that it is a lightning rod for some. We've already had some comments from bar members who don't believe this is a conversation we should have. So I don't expect that everyone will support the standing committee. Having said that, the reason I wanted to do it this way, I could have, the president has the power to appoint a special committee. A special committee does not need anybody's approval. It stands for, bad wording, the special committee exists for 3 years, and any president can appoint a special committee, again, without approval. The reason I wanted to do this is because I ran as an executive committee member, and I've since run on transparency and on making sure that we're having a conversation, everybody understands what we're doing, because we're all equally responsible as Board of Governors members, as executive committee members, as officers, in leading this bar and governing this bar. We've all been elected to do so. So again, it's my hope that we will agree to the standing committee. It's my hope that we can be on the same page, and I will now stop talking, but I'm not doing this because of politics, and I needed to say that out loud.
Hey, Dawn,
And
I know we
I
already,
didn't get the vote, but that's okay.
I know we already voted, or I know Sarah put the poll up. John Halbenrich just asked, did anyone make a Keller motion
No.
before
Oh,
the
yeah.
vote? Do we need to do that?
No, I'm sorry. I thought there was a first and second for Keller. There wasn't.
We need a
There
first
wasn't.
and
I asked,
second
you're right.
for
You're
Keller.
right. There wasn't. There
And
wasn't.
Dawn, there's also been a request to put the purpose of the committee back up on the screen. So could
Yes.
we do that before we put the vote up?
So Sarah, wait. What we're saying is there wasn't a first and second motion and then discussion, which I thought I was talking about. But I actually, as soon as Paula stopped talking, I asked you to put up the poll. So we're out of order. So take the
Okay.
poll down. And if you don't mind, while we make the motion and second it, you can leave up the language.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Okay. So you tell me when you have a first and second, and then I
Yes,
will.
ma'am. So is there a motion related to Keller, that this is Keller compliant, as Paula just stated? Is
So
there a
moved.
motion to approve this under Keller?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that this new standing committee that's up on the screen right now, seeking equal justice and addressing racism and racial bias, is Keller compliant. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, and I think that's given people enough time to look at the purpose. Sarah, can we do this for a minute? Can you put the poll up and leave it up for a minute, please?
Yes.
Okay, I know people got this last evening, but just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Okay. Okay, that's a minute.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Can you publish the results?
Yes.
Okay, by a response of 117 to 4, just for those who are on the phone and not able to see the poll results. The vote was 117 to 4 in passing the Keller motion that this is Keller compliant. The next vote, the next motion will be to approve the language, to approve the standing committee as described on your screen and per the packet you received yesterday. Is there a motion and a second to do so?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there to approve the standing committee that we just discussed, what I'm calling the Seeking Equal Justice and Addressing Racism and Racial Bias Committee? Any discussion?
We have a question from Craig. Craig, you have to unmute yourself. We can't hear you. Okay, we should be able to hear you now.
I apologize. I incorrectly hit a button. I did not mean to hit anything. I apologize.
It's okay. We're all figuring this out. Okay, hearing no discussion or comments, Sarah, please put up the poll, the poll to vote on approving the motion to approve this standing committee. Sarah, you might get asked to start playing the piano at some point in time in the future. I'm just saying.
I'm gonna need to take lessons for y'all. Okay, that's 45 seconds. Are you good?
Yes. Okay. That motion passes by a count of 114-5. Again, the vote count was 114-5. Okay. Unless someone disapproves, we're going to group under E, the approval of the remainder of the standing committees that currently exist, the special committees and the programs and boards, everything else that you received yesterday that was in your packet, other than what we just voted on as the new committee today. And thank you for that vote of confidence. And thank you for agreeing to the work that I believe we need to do collectively together as a family to help this bar be better. So unless someone disagrees, I'd like a motion to approve the standing committees, special committees, and program committees and boards as provided.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to approve the standing, special, and program committee committees and boards. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing no discussion. Sarah, can you put the poll up? Thank you.
That's 45.
Okay, that's unanimous approval of that, of the remainder of those committees. Thank you. All right, next, as we handle every year, is whether or not we want to keep Jeff Davis. There's usually a lot more jokes made, but I'm not going to belabor the point. I'm not going to belabor the point. Everybody's been really patient. But basically, folks, this action item is to is whether we agree to have Jeff continue on serving as our executive director. In this case, as many of you know, we have a search committee in place, placed there by immediate past President Daryl Sutton in February of this year to handle oversight of an executive director search that we plan to hopefully be successful with by the end of the year. So this election is for our executive director to continue serving while that process is in place, hopefully to the end of this year. Is there anything else I need to say about that before I ask for a motion? Okay, all I'm saying no. Is there a motion to do so in a second?
So moved.
Second. Hey, Dawn, it may be worth noting that obviously whenever a new executive director is selected, that person will be selected and ultimately chosen by this board and approved by this board.
Thank you.
The approval of this contract doesn't in any way bind them to having to accept some other entity's choice for the new executive director.
That's a good point. Thank you. With that stated, I just want to give another second to make sure I have no questions. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Sarah, it's been moved and seconded, correct? So Sarah, can you put the poll up?
Dawn, it may be on the agenda later. There was a question in the chat from Judge Whitaker asking for an update on the search committee for the executive director. So it may be coming up down the road and I just am missing it. But
No, it wasn't actually listed, but it occurred to me after we sent out the agenda a few weeks ago that there would probably be questions about that. And if Daryl doesn't mind, since he's been serving as chair, I'd ask him to just give an update when we get to old business, if that's okay, Daryl?
That's absolutely fine. I'd be happy to.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, Sarah, I missed the results of that poll. You're mute.
It's 45 seconds now.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
All right. Almost everybody, Jeff, is not quite unanimous, but it is, you have been approved and you don't get to go anywhere.
I got two people who said they're going to vote against me because they want me to leave.
And I'm sure they'd be cracking jokes if they were allowed to do so in this venue. So thank you.
Thank you. I have enjoyed serving 7 presidents, and Dawn, you're my 8th.
Wow.
And I look
Time flies.
I look forward to serving with you until such time as the search committee finds a successor.
Thank
So,
you.
I'm here.
And thank you for your leadership. And I know the transition will be as smooth as possible. Oh, I actually have in my notes here. Actually, Daryl, this might be the opportunity because I have in my notes, ask Daryl to give an update. Search firm has been employed. So,
Yeah, sure.
so
Yeah.
which I'm assuming we've talked about because this was my run of show cheat sheet.
All right, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
The search committee has met 3 times now. At those meetings, it was decided by the committee that both to ensure objectivity of the search and to ensure that the search is conducted with the most efficiency and effectiveness, that we should employ a search firm to assist us. We sent out a request for proposal to 4 separate search firms, all recommended by either members of the committee or members of staff, received proposals from each of those 4 firms, vetted those proposals, and after doing so, decided to engage the firm Young Maiden. In particular, we were, as a committee, we were swayed by Young Maiden's extensive experience in the area of bar executive director searches. I think that they have placed what seems to be near every executive director of a state bar in the United States and have extensive experience in this space. We were also swayed because in addition to that experience, they were the least costly of all the proposals that we received by about $10,000. And so we decided and voted as a committee unanimously to engage Young Maiden to assist to work as a search firm and to assist us in conducting the search. Barbara Maiden is our contact at the firm, and Barbara is so interested in assisting us and finding us the right executive director that she has asked and is actually present at today's meeting so she can observe and just begin to get a flavor of what our organization is like so that she can do her job as effectively as possible. And I thank her for joining us. And so we are scheduled to meet again next Tuesday to get Barbara's timeline for how we will proceed from here and hopefully to begin discussing, if not outright approving, a job description for the executive director, or a job announcement rather, so that we can get that posted. And that's where we are.
And I would just add, there are a number of folks who have already reached out. We've talked about this in various search committees, and I thank Daryl for establishing this committee and carrying it, through this bar year. there are a number of folks who reached out to us individually, collectively, and have been very vocal about their interest. I'm generally not responding to those emails. I'm not suggesting anyone does do anything differently. However, it would be most helpful if you are responding to let folks know that we will be posting the position, we will be posting the criteria and qualifications, et cetera. And then along with the instructions on how to apply. That is coming. That's generally the question I keep getting is what's happening, what's going on, what's the timeline? So you've heard it. I ask you to please get the word out. The bar as a whole, I don't believe has been informed about Jeff's leaving and about Sharon's retirement at the end of the bar year. We hope, and I'm just to comment on something I think Daryl had mentioned before, we hope to get an exec director in place who would then hire a CEO, again, before the end of this bar year. But for those folks out there wondering, we're working on it. It is a priority. It is certainly a priority because we understand we're losing a lot of institutional knowledge. So again, it'd be really helpful if you could help us by letting people know that a process is coming, a formal process is coming and will be published. It won't be hidden. Everybody will have access to it. I'm sure it'll be on the bar website, Facebook, everywhere. But we need the help and support and guidance of the search firm to help us figure it out in an efficient way. So thank you, Daryl.
Yeah, one additional item, Matt. You're welcome, Dawn. Thank you for those kind words. Barbara Maiden has indicated that any expressions of interest should be sent to her directly. And her email address is bmaiden, that's BMAYDEN @youngmaiden.com. And if you weren't able to write that down, you can just do a quick Google search for her and her information will pop up. Be sure to lace your expression of interest with profanity because she works in it as well as anybody does.
So, but yes, better Barbara than the rest of us. Thank you for that. The election schedule is on page 73 in your board book materials. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me stop and make sure nobody has a question about that because I see a Q&A. Oh, and actually, Barbara, if everybody can see the Q&A, her email address is in the Q&A box. I don't know if everybody can see that. I think they can. That's awesome. So that answers that question.
To the chat too.
Thank you very much. That's awesome. Okay, moving on to election schedule. This is just, this is for informational purposes and to vote on the election schedule for this coming bar year. Is there a motion to approve the election schedule as provided for 2020-2021?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay. It's moved and seconded that we approve the election schedule for 2020-2021 as provided in your bar book, in your board book rather. Sarah, can you put up the poll, please?
Dawn, while we're voting, can I just take a moment and wave at my nieces who woke up very early in San Diego, California? Hi, girls.
Oh.
Please take a nap later for your parents. I love you. Thank you.
I like the music.
I'll take requests.
I can barely hear, but I can hear it.
45 seconds.
All right, that motion passed unanimously. Thank you. All right, now we can come to some good stuff. I would like to remind everyone that although we are not Facebook live streaming, these nominations are public. It's not just our Board of Governors family members. And so I just wanted to say that out loud. Sarah, do you think it'd be helpful to ask in advance if there are any other nominations? And let me tell you guys why I'm asking Sarah this. We obviously have to prepare polls in advance of this meeting. And as flexible as she is, we also understand that folks can nominate from the floor today. not to ask out of turn, but this would be the time I would ask. We have listed the expired term of Ivy Cadle to be filled by Ivy Cadle's interested in re-upping, expired term of Nikki Vaughn, and then expired term of Tony Del Campo. And as I understand it, there is a prepared first and second nomination by Martin Valbuena. I thought he was Martin Valbuena. Is there anyone else who plans to nominate someone or be nominated that I have not named? If not, I ask that we accept Ivy Cadle and Bill Neesmith. Tell me if this is wrong. I'm a little rusty on this part of Robert's rules, but that by consensus, we accept the nomination of Ivy Cadle, Nikki Vaughn, and Martin Valbuena, and as a result that they will therefore become effectively the new executive committee members for this coming bar year. Is that appropriate?
You're going to need a motion and a second, but you can do them collectively.
Okay, I'll do that. Is there a motion and a second to take all three names? Again, Ivy Cadle, Nikki Vaughn, and Martin Valbuena. And I just, for my comfort level, I want to hear from Martin. Just to confirm. Is he on? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Martin. Okay. Those are the three names, Ivy, Nikki, and Martin. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Yes, Javon, that means we do not get to hear nominations. That is my point. That is absolutely my point. Okay, we're ready for the poll, Sarah. Sorry, nominators.
Anyone who prepared a speech, you can use it next year.
Sorry, nominators, that you don't get to, I'm sorry.
So I'm going to need to edit the poll because that isn't how I had done it. So wait just a second.
And to confirm, can someone confirm for me? Yeah, they're all 2-year terms. Yep, including Martin's. Reading is fundamental. I had a question. Yeah, I'm sorry. I know there are folks who put in effort for a 5-minute and a 2-minute nomination. I am very glad that we don't have to yank anybody off here because I honestly didn't believe that anybody was going to stick to those timeframes. That's just me. But I am sorry that you put forth this effort. But the good thing is we don't need to have an election since we have 3 positions to fill and 3 people willing to fill those positions. Is there any? Sarah, we can go to the informational reports if that's helpful.
I'm done.
Okay. Okay, so the poll is up.
It has been noted.
You're muted, Jeff.
Jeff, you're still muted.
Okay, sorry. It's been noted in the board book that there's a typo. The term is not 2020 to 2023. It's 2020 to
2022. You're right.
We'll correct that.
Yeah. Thank you. It's 2-year terms.
Okay, that's 45 seconds. Do you guys see the results? Okay.
Yes. So those nominations pass. Welcome. They don't pass unanimously for whatever reason, but you got the vast majority with the exception of 2 votes. So welcome, welcome Martin, and welcome back Nikki and Ivy. Thank you so much. And I'm going to take a presidential privilege and say no Seth and no Javon. We're not going to hear the nominations. Thank you. You can fuss at me later, or if people really feel moved, after we adjourn, we can leave the Zoom meeting open and we can hear all the nominations you want to hear. How about that? Daryl, there were, what I didn't say at the beginning, because I was really nervous. For those of you who don't know, normally the annual meeting includes 2 Board of Governors meetings. It includes a Friday morning meeting, which is a lot of awards presentations and ceremonial reports, as well as some specific reports and including in the memorials report. And I just thought it was really important, considering everything that's going on right now, that we can include these, and Daryl readily agreed. And so I asked him if he would provide the memorials report, since we didn't have a Friday meeting provided here. And again, I just appreciate that this executive committee is a family, and I'm not going to cry today. So Daryl, please.
You're muted, Daryl.
Sorry. Thank you, Sarah. I want us to take a moment of silence for all the members that we have lost this year. I think that it's also appropriate at this time that we take a moment and reflect and have a moment of silence for those who we know whose lives have been lost this past year, even if they aren't members of our bar, because we have lost much life this year, much too much life. And I think an appropriate time to reflect upon that, and perhaps also take that time to hope for better days ahead. So please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, Daryl. Okay. Again, because we are combine the Friday and Saturday meetings, although they would normally not get an opportunity to present to the Board of Governors in a final address, and I'm specifically talking about Will, it is important. One of the things, and Burt has not heard me say this, but one of the things that I expect to work on and do better about is work as a bar, work collaboratively with the YLD. These are the folks, many of these active members are the folks who end up sitting on the executive committee. These are the members who are just looking for opportunities to serve beyond the service arm of the State Bar of Georgia. There's so much more that the YLD brings that, frankly, I don't think they get recognized for. So I appreciate that we have this opportunity together to again, work as a family to move this ball forward. And so I'm going to ask Will Davis, as outgoing YLD president, to provide remarks, and then Burt Hummel, as incoming YLD president, will provide remarks in that order. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you, Dawn. Good morning, everybody. And I'll be brief. I do want to thank Dawn for allowing me to speak today. I've not been able to address the board and give an update on the YLD since January when we met in Atlanta. So I just wanted to first start off by saying thank you. It's been an honor to serve the YLD this year. If you did not have the opportunity to join us for our final awards ceremony yesterday and swearing in of our officers. That's available on the YLD's Facebook page. It was a great event. It was certainly different than years past, but I was able to give thanks and appreciate those who have done a lot of work for the YLD. We have been active this year, and starting March 16th, we really had to pivot and become a virtual organization. So thank you to everyone who did that. Thank you for the support of the bar. My remarks, which I'm not going to give again here today, are available, and I certainly would love for you to watch those if you're willing. Again, they're there on the Facebook page. I do want to say congratulations to some people who I know are on this call. Elizabeth Fite and Josh Bozeman received awards of achievement for their dedication to the YLD, along with Goodman McGuffey, who's an example of a firm that is always allowing and supporting its young lawyers to run for office, be committee chairs. At one point this year, we had 6 or 7 officers and our committee chairs from that firm. And I think if we could have more firms support our young lawyers like that, it would be incredible. I would like to congratulate Tina Roddenberry, who's on the Board of Governors, who received the Ross Adams Award. Very, very deserving of that. And then as well as, I think Judges Dillard and Doyle are on the call. They received the award of the Outstanding Judicial Service Award to the YLD. Thank you both for your work in support of the YLD. But just really quickly, as a summary of my year, not knowing when I was sworn in this time last year to March, and then what would happen is we were able to achieve a lot of our goals. My statewide meetings, the ones that we were able to have, certainly encouraged new members to come out. We had great support of firms who wanted to send people to in-state meetings. We were able to meet in St. Simons and at Lake Lanier. Our committees grew. Our committees shifted when they had to in COVID. I'm proud Build a Better Georgia Day, which was normally a habitat build, became Build a Better Georgia Week, in which we encouraged our members to donate blood and plasma. I especially, and really the big thing is I want to thank every single member of the Board of Governors, every single lawyer in Georgia, the Attorney General's Office and the Georgia Food Bank Association for their work on the legal food frenzy this year. We were set to start that, of course, in late April, and we had met in February at the Capitol for the kickoff, and then the pandemic hit, and we said, what are we going to do? And everyone shifted virtually under the leadership of Morgan Lindell and Veronica Roguski. This year's Legal Food Frenzy raised $852,000, and that is simply incredible. It increased what we wanted by what we hoped for by 102%. So we had a goal of $450,000 and became $852,000. I just can't even think about that. That's 3.3 million meals for low and for food insecure Georgians. And for that, thank you for everyone who encouraged donations through your firm, through your friends, through your networks. It's an incredible accomplishment. I will say kudos to Daryl with that as well. The Food Frenzy started when he was YLD president. And so that is in its 9th year, a program that really has grown into something that is going to be modeled, I think, across the country in future years. So again, with that, I kind of want to end. One of my main goals this year was to increase diversity in the YLD. I want to thank all of you who have allowed me to do that as the first, and I've said it, and I think it's important to be said, as the first openly gay elected YLD officer, statewide bar officer. I've been in a position where I was first going to run in 2014, where someone told me not to run because the state bar wasn't ready for that. And I waited for 2 years. And so in doing what I've been able to do this year, I think the YLD has always been at the forefront of diversity. We've had 14 female presidents. We've had 4 African-American presidents. We've had an Asian-American president. And I think right now the YLD is just well suited to create comfortable spaces and open spaces to listen and to further communication. And I think that Burt is really going to have initiatives that are going to move that progress forward. I think that we owe it to the bar, the profession, the public to have these conversations. They're hard, but it's important because we have always led the charge, and I think the YLD will continue to do that. It has been an honor to serve you. Again, thank you for allowing me to do it. I will appreciate being up here for a year in my role as immediate past president. And just thank you so much. It's been a blessing. And Burt, I'm so happy for you. And so I will now introduce your YLD president, Burt Hummel, who has some great plans for this year. So thank you.
Wow, well, thank you, Will. I appreciate your words. They mean a lot. especially after the year you were able to put on, and creating somewhat of a blueprint for how to navigate these times. So congratulations on your year, Will, and shattering all fundraising expectations. I'll be brief. I'm honored to rise and speak to this group, the esteemed body of the Board of Governors, on behalf of the Young Lawyers Division, and I look forward to serving as their president 2020 to 2021. I believe it's a universal truth that 2020 has not been a banner year for any one of us, other than those who potentially had the foresight to hoard toilet paper and hand sanitizer. And even more so for those who took advantage of it monetarily by selling it on eBay and Amazon. However, we stand in a unique position right now that we can change the way that future generations look back at 2020. While it has been difficult, it's presented numerous challenges with how to deal with a pandemic, other global crises, but more importantly, how we as a bar and lawyers of our state respond as leaders when confronted with injustice, inequality, and systemic racism in our society. We owe it to the public to serve, to stand up, to lend our voices, our platforms, and our leadership to the communities that expect us to be just that. After all, we've taken an oath to administer justice and serve the public. So will future generations look back at us in 2020 with disdain and lost opportunities to advocate for change and inequality, when it seems that so many of us in our society have their attention on the issues we currently find ourselves facing? Or will we look back at 2020 with admiration, because in adversity, we showed our resolve, our perseverance, and adherence to the moral compass that allowed us to lend our voices to stand up against the racial injustices that continue to exist in our society. These aren't new issues. These are issues that for so long have been etched in the forefront of the American conscience. In that regard, I have 4 initiatives that I plan to push forward this year. I was happy that this body already approved in large numbers Dawn's new committee to address racial bias and injustice in our profession and our society. And so with that, it leads me into my first initiative this year, is to address systemic racism in our communities, our profession, and our justice system in order to promote changes to end instruments of inequality. We will work with Madam President Dawn Jones and her new committee on racial bias and injustice to seek out where inequality surfaces and how to address it. I have already challenged yesterday the young lawyers of this state, and in numerous conversations leading up to my address yesterday, to stand up and to lead our communities during these difficult times. I've identified several members of the Young Lawyers Division to serve as directors, and I've actually expanded our board of directors in order to facilitate discussions across our state, utilizing our local affiliates to promote these real and hard discussions that we must have in order to figure out where these injustices we speak about surface. What does it mean to have an instrument of inequality? Where does it surface, and how are we going to be able to address it? A second initiative is to work with the public that we serve by increasing our community service efforts to our local communities across the state. And also aim to expand our nationally recognized and awarded clinics and programs for the benefit of the public we serve and our members. Finding purpose through service is what I'm challenging a number of our committee chairs to accomplish this year by promoting further community service efforts by their members. And the third initiative is to advocate for further wellness initiatives for young lawyers in Georgia. Statistics show that mental health issues often form through bad habits that are taken up at young ages in attorneys' lives, most of the time in law school or in the first 5 years of practice. As such, our goal is to remove the taboo stigma around mental health and discussing it, and to address what types of changes young lawyers can make to have better habits in their lives and to make their mental health improve. Fourth and finally, I benefited greatly from having a mentor who adhered to the TILT program's mentor requirements. Veronica Richardson stepped up in so many ways for me when she could have just simply signed my form, taken me to a deposition, looked over a few discovery efforts, and said, there you go, kid. Welcome to the world of attorneying. Go lawyer. Instead, she really took it seriously. She continued in my development as an attorney. She's become a close friend and confidant, and still, though, acts as a mentor. She always puts that mentor cap on when we talk. So I realize and recognize how much that did for my professional growth and development as an attorney and as a service or someone who was dedicated to service in our profession and in our communities. And I believe that other lawyers should benefit from same. So I will be creating a database along with a couple of directors to have mentors or have lawyers of this state sign up to act as mentors to young lawyers so that they too can benefit from personal growth or professional growth and development. I invite all of you of the board of directors to join us in our meetings this year. I look forward to actually having in-person meetings. I believe that so much can be done when you are meeting. Yes, I enjoy the sidebar conversations with everyone, even if it is a lot of people boasting of their legal accomplishments or talking about so much that as attorneys we face that others may seem as boasting. But I do look forward to having folks come to our meetings. We have a fall meeting in Jekyll Island, October 30th through November 1st. I also hope that they will be playing a football game an hour away when Georgia and Florida play that the young lawyers may be able to attend, and other Board of Governors members should they want to come down and join us. We will have community service efforts down there. We will continue our discussions as outlined above. And then January, we will join the Board of Governors with the mid-year meeting here in Atlanta. And then in the spring, Dawn and I spoke about this. It was important to me to have the young lawyers of the state see how the Board of Governors kind of operates. And while they're able to do that at the mid-year meeting and the annual meeting, there's a lot of distractions during that time as well. So I have joined with Dawn, and she has agreed to allow a bunch of young attorneys to hold our meeting at the same time as the Board of Governors meeting in Brasstown Valley.
Younger attorneys.
What's that? Senior? Younger attorneys. My fault. Yeah, as you can see, the white in my beard would say perhaps I'm not a young attorney any longer. But it's important for me to have the young lawyers of our younger lawyers of our state see the hard work that goes into these meetings, see the leadership that the attorneys of this board provide. And so we look forward to collaborating with you at that meeting and beyond. And of course, the annual meeting, we are looking forward to that and potentially some much needed beach time in Isle of Palms. I look forward to serving as the president of the Young Lawyers Division and this board in any way that our members would like. I have provided my top initiatives above, but the Young Lawyers Division is always open to advocating for service to the profession and as the service arm of the bar in general. Daryl, I thank you and I applaud your year as our leader while navigating such tumultuous waters and difficult times. You and Will have provided a much needed blueprint for Dawn and myself as we lead our bodies this year. And Madam President, I look forward to your leadership and serving the bar when and where needed. The Young Lawyers Division is at your disposal to help you accomplish the goals that you have set forth, and I look forward to all that you will accomplish. And thank you for your time, and be well.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to save my comments to the end. Legislative report, Christine Butcher-Hayes.
Can you all see me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, good morning, everyone. I wanted to start off my legislative report by thanking Daryl for his leadership over the past year. as a quasi-governmental organization, the bar has to work with so many different stakeholders, so many different governmental entities, so many different legal groups that exist in the state of Georgia, and a number of practitioners across the spectrum of political beliefs, practice areas, many different variables. And it's a difficult job, and I think a lot of people don't realize how closely the president is involved in that when it comes to shaping the legislative strategy, especially during the legislative session. And it's difficult, it's precarious, and a lot of times it's very, very stressful. And so I wanted to just thank Daryl for his steady hand, and his guidance throughout this whole year. And Dawn, usually the president gets a little bit of time before the legislative session starts in January, sort of like a leisure period. And yours is going to be a baptism by fire because the first day back is on Monday. So the legislature adjourned. It was, I believe, March 16th was day 29. And everything has been shut down since. And so they will restart their legislative session for day 30 on Monday. And I'm sure as many of you have heard in the press, the number one issue that's going to be at the forefront of everyone's mind will be the budget. Throughout the entire COVID crisis, the state has seen a significant drop to the tune of billions of dollars in the amount of revenue that it takes in, from sales tax revenues to individual income revenues. And as a result, the budget has to be slimmed down to fit with the amount of revenue that the state is taking in, because we have a balanced budget amendment in our state constitution. So the legislature every year has one job that they have to do, and that's pass the budget by June 30th. And with this really unique situation with the COVID crisis, they haven't had a chance to pass the budget by June 30th. And so that will be their foremost task over for the next 2 weeks. But aside from that, I haven't given anyone a legislative update since I did a written one on crossover day that was sent to the entire bar. But in terms of the priorities that the Board of Governors has passed for this legislative year, I did want to give you guys an update on where all those were. The first is House Bill 865, which is the fiduciary sections bill that makes a bunch of changes to Title 52. That bill, we've been talking with Senator Jesse Stone, who's the Senate Judiciary Committee chair, and he is open to having a hearing on it. They're still not sure what the leadership is going to do in terms of bills going to the floor. The way that they're going to vote is going to obviously be very different because of social distancing, and the ability to put all of those people in the chamber at once can be difficult with the social distancing rules that are in place. So it's unlikely that we will have the flow of bills that we normally do around, day 38, 39, and 40 with sine die, where you're, passing bills sometimes like every 5 minutes. But we are hoping to get that bill to the floor because it's been the work of extensive work by the fiduciary section and also the Council of Probate Court Judges as well. Senate Bill 464 is the Uniform Mediation Act. That passed in the Senate this year, and it made its way over to the House. We have spoken to Judiciary Chairman Barry Fleming, and he is open to having a hearing on it as well. But again, it's the same concerns that the Senate's having in terms of how many bills they're going to take up this year and how many bills with the new social distancing rules they will be able to hear. House Bill 785 was another priority of the bar. That is the remote online notarization bill. Unfortunately, it did not pass in the House before crossover day, but it's ironically just the timing of the bill in terms of the entire pandemic. We were very familiar with a lot of the provisions we were working on with the bill, and a lot of that research led to the executive orders that we were able to, that the governor was willing to listen to us and to issue. And to talk a second about those executive orders, I've had several questions about how long they extend or whether they're still valid. The two that the governor has issued, one that has to do with remote notarization of real estate transactions, and the other that has to do with remote notarization generally. Both of those are valid and will continue so long as there is a standing public health state of emergency that's been issued by the governor. And so he has extended that public health state of emergency into July. And so those executive orders will stand so long as that continues. or as the executive order limits or states that they're no longer valid. So as of right now, they are continuing into July. In terms of the three funding proposals that we support annually, the kinship care, the money that the state puts towards civil legal services for kinship care, which last year was $375,000. Civil legal services for domestic violence, which in the past has been $2.5 million. And the money for the Georgia Resource Center that the state appropriates, which is $800,000. We are going to advocate and talk to the legislature about hopefully sustaining some of that funding, but due to the budget cuts, everyone is facing some sort of cut that they are going to have to, unfortunately, undertake. And so there is a likelihood that some of that money that was appropriated last year will be pulled back just a little bit. But I will be sure to keep you all updated on that. And then finally, I did want to thank our three contract lobbyists, Rusty Sewell, Mark Middleton, and Roy Robinson. I think have the question over the years, why do we have help down at the Capitol? What sort of purpose do contract lobbyists serve? And they are integral to what we do in terms of the diversity of relationships that we have with different people at the Capitol. Just in terms of delegating different duties, the State Bar has one of the largest legislative packages and legislative agendas of any other interest group down at the Capitol. And it's something that I could not manage by myself. And so I am incredibly grateful for their advice, their wisdom, and certainly their help during the legislative session. So with that said, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Christine. I asked because we had a limited agenda in March. I thought it'd be helpful and frankly prudent for us to hear from the next two committees. And Chris Twyman and Paul Painter, in that order, are on the agenda to provide updates on those committees' specific works. Chris?
Thank you, Dawn. Can you see me?
Yes, we can see and hear you.
Excellent, excellent, and congratulations to you and to all of the board members. And we're looking forward to a great year from your leadership. I do want to provide just an update on the Professional Liability Insurance Committee. Of course, our work was stopped because of COVID-19, but I do want to provide some background not only to the board, but to other members of the bar who are listening in. Provide a resource for those members who would like to review the options, and just give a brief roadmap of where I see the committee's work going this year. As you all know, about 2 years ago, in fact, it was 2 years ago, that then President Hodges, now Judge Hodges, appointed a Professional Liability Insurance Committee to study whether or not we as a bar needed to take action and require attorneys to carry professional liability insurance. Last year, under the leadership of Daryl Sutton, he appointed me as chair to continue that study. And through this committee's hard work, four varying options were developed. And for those who have not read the options or are unfamiliar with the options, you can certainly review those options by going to the bar's website under the bar committee's professional liability insurance, and you will see the options listed there, as well as all of the minutes from our meetings and the hard work that this committee has poured into this study. Those varying options range from simply polling members as to whether or not they carry professional liability insurance to requiring all members who practice in Georgia to carry some form and at some limit professional liability insurance. It was certainly our hope to be able to make a recommendation early in the spring so that this matter could be brought for a vote by Daryl at this annual meeting, and obviously we were not able to do that because of the times that we're in right now. Going forward, and as soon as it's safe for us to meet, because I really like to do this in person, it is my intention to have this committee study the final options, vote on those options to see if any of them can garner a majority of committee support, which we would then make as a recommendation to the full board. And in doing so, I really would like for us to be able to make that recommendation to you, the board members, so that you have time to take all options in their final form, as well as that recommendation back to your judicial circuits, to your constituents, so that we can have a meaningful debate about it and then move forward at a subsequent meeting for a full vote if that's what President Jones wants to do. In no way do we want to rush this process. We have not rushed it. It's been a 2-year process, but I do believe that we are at a point where we are prepared to debate final options, vote on whether to make a recommendation to the board, and then allow this matter to come before the board for a vote. I do want to say that if you do have any comments, you can certainly email those. We've been using the president@gabar.org email, but please know the work of this committee has fanned out throughout the state, from Rome to Tifton, from Atlanta to Savannah, and it was certainly our intention to go in the spring to Chateau Alon. We had meetings set up in Macon, and we had plans for Columbus, and of course we couldn't make all of those locations, but I do believe that we have, with the yeoman's work of this committee and all of the comments in town halls, I believe that we have crafted viable options for consideration. So our hope is that either by the fall and not you're beginning, Dawn will be ready to bring a recommendation, and that recommendation will then be in your hands for presentation to the board. Certainly want to thank Daryl for all that he's done, and his leadership and input into this process. And I want to thank the committee for their hard work, and certainly Paula and her staff at the State Bar. We could not be where we are without them. And so that's the report on the professional liability insurance. And if anyone has questions, I certainly invite them to contact me offline.
Thank you, Chris. We really appreciate that and the work of your committee. I got at least one text message, and I want to tell Chris while I got him on here, one text message from someone who was on the committee this last year and apparently didn't make it on this year. I had no intentions of changing your committee. So we need to make whatever corrections we need to make. I had no intentions of disrupting that part at all.
We'll do it.
Okay. So let me know how I need to fix it, how to fix that. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Absolutely.
Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Paul? There you go.
Oh, great. Thank you, Donna, and congratulations to you and all the new officers. And no doubt we're going to have a great year under your leadership. As Daryl said in the last board meeting, right about that time, he created a couple committee or a task force and a committee to address the issues that would affect lawyers and delivering legal services due to the COVID-19 crisis. The task force was made up of me, Steve Gottlieb of Atlanta Legal Aid, and Rick Ruffalo from Georgia Legal Services. And the committee was made up of about 15 bar members that are geographically and by practice area diverse. And so there was different representation from around the state in different areas of law. The purpose that Daryl gave us was twofold. One, to identify issues of the crisis impact on the legal system, the legal profession, and the delivery of legal services, and 2, to identify and coordinate solutions for those problems, which basically came down to, we don't know what's going to come. Anything that comes down the line, you all need to try to figure it out and help coordinate at least a solution, make sure one's coming down the pipe. So there was really no precedent for this, so we had to remain flexible, and we have done so, and we're basically on phase 2 of this assignment right now. The first phase was triage. At the end of March of last year, or the end of March, y'all may remember that it seemed like there was a new issue coming up every day, both in society and in our own practices and ability to get anything done. And there was just a lot of impediments in the way of the ability to provide legal services. So what we did is, instead of having a standard committee set up, the task force worked as a triage agency, and with our fantastic State Bar staff liaison, Natalie Kelly, created a form that was emailed out to everyone that gathered information from anyone who wanted to fill out the form, identifying the issue. That would immediately result in an email to the 3 task force members if it was something completely super urgent. If not, Natalie would compile those into a spreadsheet weekly, and we would get on the phone and go over each issue and triage them. And we created a triage matrix that basically weighed the potential harm of the issues that were reported and compared it to the frequency. The more harmful and the more frequent the issue, the bigger the priority was. Of course, our concern was this was so widespread and part of every aspect of society that if we treated this like a normal committee and roundtabled every issue that came up, we get so bogged down that we wouldn't be effective in creating any solutions. So we did that and got about 50 issues that were reported to us, about 25 of which did we respond to. And in our response, the task force would assign that to a committee member to get with the interested parties and try to come up with a solution. And whether that would be something easy as communicating something through the bar or something more complex, like working with the governor's office or the attorney general's office, we would make those recommendations. That went on for about a month, and we were getting pretty good traffic. After a month, probably at the beginning of to mid-May, the reports started to die down, and I attribute that to 2 things. One, the issues that came up at the beginning were either resolved or otherwise dealt with or ignored. And 2, as the state started opening up, some of the issues became maybe less poignant for us to deal with. So as that, we're still taking on the issues like that, but we're starting to go into phase 2, which looks at when the courts fully reopen and the statute of limitation tolling expires, what issues are going to be flooding the courts. And more to our view, the more underserved parts of the population we expect them to deal with things like dispossessories. Obviously, we've heard of an uptick of domestic violence during this time, and the groups we have in place to deal with that primarily are legal aid clinics. Have the potential to get overwhelmed due to the sheer volume of that, at which point we're looking at trying to find a way for the private bar to provide kind of a backstop to that when it happens. Obviously, the crisis isn't over, and things will continue to change in our view on this and our procedures and what we're going to do to handle it may change as that goes along. But if anyone has issues that they see continuing that they like to raise, the form that we've relied upon has been a great tool for us, remains on the website. And you can either find it under the Attorney Wellness tab and look for the COVID-19 resources. And it doesn't identify our committee, but it talks about identify issues that have been affected by this, and it'll lead you to the form. Otherwise, go to our committee, which is the legal services dealing with COVID-19, and you can find the form there.
Thank you, Paul. And I failed to ask, hopefully we didn't lose Chris, but we may have. Are there any questions for any of these reports? I don't see any in the Q&A. And I don't see anyone who's raised their hands, but I want to take just a minute to see, and so appreciate everyone's patience. Take just a minute to see if anybody has any immediate pressing questions. I don't see any. Okay. Thank you so much, Paul. Okay. Everyone, I direct your attention to the written reports that are listed and in the board book, starting at page 76, under topic number 6 in your agenda, including the executive committee meeting minutes, the Office of General Counsel's report, the Office of the Attorney General, the State Bar of Georgia Coastal Office Statistics, the State Bar of Georgia South Georgia Office Statistics, the fee arbitration report, the law practice management report, the media report, the military legal assistance program report, and the sections annual reports. You will note that a number of section reports are not here. As a heads up to those of you, as you look through the committee assignments to see if your name's on there and if you're a chair, please note that we expect to have continue to have very active committee and sections this bar year. The work needs to continue, and much of the work is done at that level. I hope that you all will participate in our upcoming committee and section orientations that will be scheduled to occur in another month or so. We're working on that right now. There are some committees that have not met. There are some sections that are less active than others. And we get those questions when those committees don't meet and those sections don't meet. We get questions from members asking what's going on. And I'm hoping to avoid having to respond to those questions this year because there is a lot of work to do. The Unlicensed Practice of Law Committee report, the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism report, and the Georgia Legal Services Program report. And yes, I'm going to read the written report titles every time because, again, we need to make sure that we pay attention to this as we are elected to do. In closing, I'm going to ask if there's any old business that needs to be addressed. Again, please raise your hand or write a comment in the Q&A. And EC members, help me make sure I'm not missing any hands raised. I don't see any. I have new business. Any new business? As a point, just a point of kind of operational procedure in the future, it didn't happen today, but for future reference, if we have to have an executive session during a Board of Governors meeting, there's no way to do that via Zoom without closing out our Board of Governors meeting, essentially finishing that meeting, adjourning it, and then opening it up an executive session meeting, likely under another Zoom access access information. So just a heads up, if it ever comes up in the next year and we're still meeting by Zoom, we're going to need to address it that way. Under remarks, Q&A comments, so got a little thrown and got a little off the agenda because I was frankly quite excited about getting my remarks out, but more importantly because I had cut them to the extent that I hadn't talked about my family in the 2 minutes I'm going to do now, but thanking some folks. And I did that because I know, and we're over by 12 minutes, but I'm really grateful and thankful that you guys have hung on with the number of members that are still on and participating. But I'd be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity now at the end of the business meeting to, again, I can't stress enough my excitement about working with this particular group of people. I cannot. So I'm going to just state it again, and hopefully you will be as impressed as I am at the end of this bar year about the dedication and effort that these folks are planning to give some really challenging times and to some really challenging issues. I held up, and again, these are just comments I would have made, and I struck because I was worried with our 20-25 minute start time that we would be much longer than this. So again, just bear with me. My father's not here because he is 75 years old. He has a number of comorbidities, and he lives in Virginia with the rest of my family members. They're all in Virginia, Maryland, and DC. There was no way they could be here today. I am medically fragile, as some of you know. You might have noticed a couple years ago, I did not have hair for a period of time. Apparently, a lot of people didn't notice that, which still stress about a little bit, but seriously, my father's not here. He wasn't here to hold my Bible. He wanted to be here. He couldn't be here. So instead, this Bible, which he was given to me by my dad and my stepmother, their names are Elwood L. Jones Sr. and Erna Jones, was given to me. This is my Bible, and this is the Bible I use today, knowing that my father wasn't going to be able to be here in person to hold it. I want to thank my Gadbois family. The Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys has made me who I am. From my second year of part-time studies at Georgia State University College of Law, Professor Bernadette Hartfield all but pushed me to a Gadbois meeting. And I fell in love with a group of largely women, largely Black women, this group of mostly Black women who cared about my success, who were activists in the community. That's really what drew me to them, is the level of activism. It was amazing, and it continues to amaze me to this day. It's a very special group of people, and it gives me a great sense of pride that one of the past presidents, Judge Patsy Porter, swore me in today. I also want to thank, going back to my family, because I'm being random a little bit, I do want to thank my siblings. I love them. I tell them I love them all the time, even though I don't like them a lot. But specifically my brother Elwood and my sister Tiffany, and my uncles Warren and Uncle Buzz, also known as Robert Curry, my Aunt Barbara, and all of my extended family. They all wonder what I do. And again, it's a little bit of regret, and I'm not having a pity party, but they have no clue. All they know is I don't respond. I'm busy. I don't respond to text messages quickly. I always seem to be tied up and out of the house at all times of the night and day. And it would have been nice to have them see Saturday night, to have them look out over the audience and specifically see the people who I get to work with on a volunteer basis with this important work. But again, I know they're here in spirit, and I know under the circumstances they couldn't be here. Lastly, in addition to my Gadbois family, including the founders, founding members, and past presidents, I want to thank 8th City Bar Association, which has equally loved me and supported me since I was in law school, and the Atlanta Bar Association. I was a little concerned, that's not the right word, when I joined the Atlanta Bar. I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me. Gadbois and Gate City were comfortable. And for those of you who don't represent I think Georgia, Blacks make up about 30% of the state currently. But in our bar, we don't have those numbers, but my sense is that it might not be, maybe a little bit better now, but certainly 20 years ago, it was harder to find lawyers who look like me really active in some of the majority bars. And Atlanta Bar welcomed me and gave me opportunities to serve. And that's how I ended up here today. All of these folks who poured into me, including the 3 women who served as past presidents of the State Bar of Georgia and participated on the agenda today, have poured into me, and I wouldn't be here without any of them. So thank you and I'm sorry if I'm purposely not trying to call people's names, because I knew that wouldn't work, but thank you for giving me the moment to thank these folks on the record, and to give a couple personal shout outs to my family, my friends, and the organizations that lifted me and encouraged me to be here today. And I really, really look forward to the next bar year with your help, your support, and with everyone's leadership. Thank you. What we did today was not insignificant, and I think most of us realize that. And I thank you. That's all I got. So unless there's other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Somebody has to unmute.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I need you to note that officially our meeting was less than 3 hours. I just need that to be noted. That's all I got.
It was.
Be safe, everyone.
Good
Thank
job.
you, Daryl.